Money Mayweather. You may have never actually seen him fight, but you know exactly who he is. Floyd Mayweather was born on February 24th, 1977, in a hospital in Michigan. His father was a professional boxer, but as well, on the side, he was also a drug dealer in order to support his family. His mother was a drug addict who was in the beginning of Floyd's career life. She was kind of in and out. Now, when Floyd's father was incarcerated and his mom wasn't there, um, Floyd would be left with his grandma. His grandma was kind of his only other constant besides boxing, um, and she was also the one of the very first people to see the potential that Floyd had in boxing. One anecdote that Floyd would always share is that he would always tell his grandma, "I need to get a job to support and hold my weight in this family," and she would say, "No, just continue with boxing." And a couple years down the road, when Floyd is a teenager, uh, Floyd ends up dropping out of high school, and because he finally had enough, and he wants to support his family and help his mom, who is struggling with addiction. So Floyd had an amateur career. He had 88 fights, won 84, and only lost 4 of those fights. And during his amateur career, especially with that record, he earned the nickname, one of many nicknames that he would later earn. The first one was Pretty Boy, and the reason he was called Pretty Boy is because his technique that his father and his uncle had taught him was so good that after his fights, he'd have little to no scarring or bruising on his face. Now, in 1996, Floyd would represent the United States in the 1996 Olympics. Floyd would fight he would fight in the weight class as a featherweight, and he ended up winning bronze, which is third place. So he had a really really good amateur career, 88 fights, three um, third place in the Olympics, a bronze medal. Now, shortly after the Olympics in 1996, he actually debuted as a professional because the Olympic Games aren't counted as professional fights. They're still amateur fights. So, on October 11th in 1996, a couple of months later after the Olympic Games, Mayweather turned professional and he had his first fight against Apodaca, and he ended up winning that fight in a second round KO, which means knockout. 2 years later, after that, he fought a fighter named Hernandez, and the reason why this is significant is because this is the fight that Mayweather won his first WBC belt. WBC meaning World Boxing Council. And the reason why this is important is because Mayweather down the line is synonymous with the WBC belt. Now Floyd ended up winning that fight against Hernandez via a eighth round TKO. Now 4 years later in 2002, he fought Castillo, and this is significant because this was the second WBC belt that Floyd had won, but in a second weight class. He won this fight via unanimous decision, and he beat Castillo. All the judges had voted for Mayweather. Now, 5 years later, Floyd would have one of his first ever money fights throughout his career. But this was against one of arguably Mexico's greatest fighter of all time, and arguably pound for pound fighter at the time. Against he had the fight. The fight was against Oscar De La Hoya. Now this was considered the first money fight because both fighters were going home with a significant amount of in money. Their purse was going to be really big. Um, so Mayweather ended up winning this fight in what is considered an instant classic. He ended up winning via split decision, so it was really close. Now, in 2015, we finally got to see one of the fights that every boxing fan had longed to wait for, and that was against Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. Now, this fight had taken years in the making. It took a lot of things just to get this fight done. There was disputes of weight of gloves, what type of gloves they could use in the fight, who was going to take more money home, and all of that. But finally, the date was settled for May 2nd, 2015, and Floyd beat Manny Pacquiao in a dominating fashion, ended up winning by unanimous decision. So they went all 12 rounds. Now, in 2017, August 26th, one of the biggest fights that had ever happened was Money Mayweather versus Conor the Notorious McGregor. Now, this was a clash of two fighters from the respective sports. Now, the reason this is called the money fight is because both fighters were taking an even bigger amount purse home. Everyone was taking over 50 million guaranteed. Now, Mayweather did what he usually does, and he won. He beat Conor via TKO in the 10th round. Now, after Mayweather's very illustrious career, the legacy that he's leaving on is this boxing promotion, TMT, which stands for the Money Team. His 50-0 spotless record. And he also changed the landscape of how pro athletes are viewed and how much they get paid. Mayweather is leaving behind a legacy that will not be touched. He is Floyd, the best ever, Mayweather.